This is your care plan. So sorry it took me so long. Lots of stuff that came up, but we're going to try to summarize some of what has come up in several different scans. The way that I'm doing them now is I upload files into ChatGPT. I study these trends over that Chat is able to bring up. Like, it is so incredibly helpful actually under a certain context of, chatting with Chat to get it to come up with the right things for me to understand the scans in a little bit less time. But it turns out that it takes me the same amount of time because now I make these videos. So we will just kind of move into some of the markers that we're seeing trending. And by trending, I mean we see them a few times in the scanner. And also we understand your health history and some of the issues that you have. Now, overall, I would say your scans look very good. There are a few areas that I would like to talk about. And these are some of the markers that may indicate, and that's a really specific thing here. None of this is diagnostic, we know that. But some of these markers may indicate there's a stress role on certain pathways. One is methylation. Homocysteine is trending. That is considered one of the main markers of longevity and health. When homocysteine is showing up on the scan, usually albumin and other types of inflammatory markers like NF-kappa are showing up, and it just tells me there could be some methylation issues here. Now, you are a Caucasian male. Likely you carry at least a heterozygous or homozygous form of the mutation with the MTHFR. Now, there are multiple issues with methylation that essentially I'm actually working on an ebook right now to make this a little easier. I'm going to title this Understanding Methylation because I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there, and it's one of the things I spend the most time with clients. So I'm trying to dumb that down just a little bit for these care plan videos so that we can have a takeaway that makes sense and understanding why it's important, where we might need to support with supplementation or diet. And essentially you could, just from having too many toxins that you're not clearing, you could still have these same markers showing up even if you didn't have what we call dirty methylation genes. So if your genes are clean and genetically mutated is a little bit of a strong word, but if you have SNPs that lend towards you having methylation issues that are somewhat compromised, too fast or too slow in certain enzymes or cofactors, then you can still support that. So we want to clean the genes. So this is going to be all about working through some of this load and some of the things that we're seeing in your markers that we could support. So notice that you can take a screenshot here. Homocysteine is directly related to methylation. It may indicate stress and methylation pathways impacting neurotransmitter balance. This is your dopamine, your serotonin, melatonin. This is the information given to your brain and nervous system through the cells. DNA repair, detox of estrogens, and yes, you do have estrogens, histamine, and heavy metals. So that one's a really important one. Ferritin may reflect challenges in iron regulation. Iron regulation is something that most of us feel like, what I see in my practice is a lot of people, especially women, are being diagnosed and mistreated around, stay. What? Heck, you're kidding me. What the absolute? Okay, so when it comes to iron metabolism, that's where ferritin comes in. Albumin may suggest an increased need for transport of hormones. This has a lot to do with the way we're storing and working with red blood cells. And then let's go ahead and move into the next slide. Understanding phase 2 detox and methylation. So how your body clears waste hormones and toxins. That's essentially what methylation is. Phase 2 detox is your body's internal cleanup crew. After toxins are identified and prepared in phase 1, phase 2 is where they get packaged and neutralized so they can safely exit your body. And they're doing this through the urine, through feces, through sweat. This is all supporting phase 2 detox. If you were a woman, it would be doing it through the menstrual cycle as well. So the 6 major phase 2 pathways, and we see 5 of these in the AO scan, but I wanted you just to understand a little bit about when we talk about methyl groups. There are certain donors, and foods can donate, supplements can donate, not don. B12, folate, SAMe. SAMe is a universal donor. It will add a methyl group. Where you might see SAMe in your supplement library come up as if we are overly stressed, working hard, maybe pushing ourselves in the bodybuilding department, and you're a little bit on the lag with recovery. Sulfation, it adds sulfur to make toxins water soluble. Glucuronidation attaches glucuronic acid. Glutathione conjugation binds toxins with glutathione. So you're starting to see acetylation adds an acetyl group. Amino acids, so these are proteins, adding acids to bind with toxins. So this is a good one if you want to take a screenshot or if you just want to be like, that's nice. Let's move on here. What is methylation? So methylation is like adding a Post-it note to a molecule so your body knows what to do with it. It's essentially a little address. Turn genes on and off, process neurotransmitters, clear estrogen, histamine toxins. Now this is super important. And this is what we're seeing a little bit on your scan as it trends, that there are some toxins, especially fungal toxins, building up. A few things that point to estrogens or specifically even other hormones being a little bit off. Histamine. A few foods trending here that make me feel like you have a little bit of a histamine sensitivity going on. When these pathways are overwhelmed, you may feel sluggish, anxious, or inflamed. When they don't clear properly, toxins can recirculate, food and chemical sensitivities increase. So it's almost like you're building kind of a threshold, and where we talk about that health bank, the food we eat, the stress we have to go through, the deadlines we're trying to keep, this is all contributing to that health bank. And we make deposits, or we make, what's it called when you take things away? It's not a deposit, you know what it is. I'm gonna move on. Detox symptoms may show up as in the skin, as acne or eczema, fatigue, headaches. So this is where I saw some of the things around your digestive markers that I have not seen as much in the past. And we're really looking again through that lens of where could we support you in ways we might have missed last time, and going a little bit deeper. So fungus yeast, you have a few markers there, especially in the fungus or candida panel on the AO scan. So it could be that there is some overgrowth of candida going on in the gut at a gut level. I'm sure that, I have no idea if you've been taking antibiotics recently, but I didn't see anything about that when we talked. But it could just be sodas or foods, fried foods, processed foods, anything like that in excess will definitely read as fungus or candida. The liver showing AST and ALT, that's definitely something where we're looking at the liver being somewhat burdened. And it could be due to fungal, die-off, or mycotoxins. These are your molds, and even some allergies can contribute to that. Glutathione, your master antioxidant, is often depleted in mold and fungal stress. Glutathione clears fungal toxins. That's why it's one of our master antioxidants. Methylthionine is needed for phase 2. It is for methylation and sulfur, and it's also very important for mood and neurotransmitter regulation. Histidine, precursor to histamine. Highest histamine levels can indicate fungal growth and gut permeability, but also yeast might show up a little bit more. So directly related, when we see histidine, we're looking at fungal overgrowth. Valine and isoleucine are actually 2 amino acids very specific to muscle growth. So these could be trending simply because of the workout burden that you put on your body. So I'm not too concerned about those. So some nutrient trends that may enable, we're just seeing vitamin C, zinc, copper, and B6, which the active form for B6 is actually P5P, and we'll talk about that in just one second. So some things that I would recommend supplementing your scanner with that I did not see the library have is really specific and small doses of these. And the peroxidol 5-phosphate is the active bioavailable form of B6. So if you do have issues, even certain genetic issues, and where B6 is showing up and we see methylation issues, it's interrelated. So I've really been kind of cracking down on fine-tuning some of those potential markers that maybe you are compromised genetically, or maybe there's just other factors here. But B12, B6, zinc, and magnesium are some that we could really find beneficial when we microdose them in active form. So where we see B12 as methylcobalamin means it's the active form, and I put you on a half a lozenge per dose. That means you'll be cutting one of these 5 milligrams in half and put it in as a half a lozenge. That's going to give you 2.5, and it's a lozenge that you suck on, so better absorption through the mouth and through the glands there that can go into the bloodstream more effectively than when we swallow it as a supplement. So I hope you don't mind that. Active form of B6, we talked about that, but I wanted to make sure you knew that this P5P needs to go in as a third a capsule, a half a capsule, and 1 capsule. And that's really important. The scanner has those suggestions in there. I know that I've never done that, but that's how small I would like you to be. So if this was half a capsule, you'd be 15 milligrams. Third, it would be about 7 something. No, it'd be about 10 something. I don't know where I math that. But that's kind of where I want you around this B6, because if we overwhelm this pathway, we could be causing a traffic jam in other areas. So I'd really like, the beauty of the scanner is that we can put these doses in and see where we need them. Oops, go back to zinc. Zinc is super, super important. I wanted you to be able to have this in a liquid form. It is not yummy. I will just tell you that. It's from Trace Minerals. So it tastes very bitterly salty. I have it in there for you to do 5 drops, 10 drops in the scanner, right? And varied based on your needs would be exactly what I would do here. So that's a good suggestion. It is a 50 milligram at a full dropper, I believe. So watch for that. Just keep it small. So a little bit about that active form of B6, the P5B, is very important for supporting testosterone regulation, also plays a role in androgen receptor sensitivity, helping your cells respond to testosterone. That's huge. And there are a few markers that I've seen that really match up with you needing this particular supplement to kind of fine-tune whatever's going on in possibly in your genes. Stress and cortisol balance, it's needed to convert tryptophan into serotonin. Tryptophan into serotonin. These are 2 markers I see a lot on your scans, and I actually made notes when I worked with you almost 2 years ago, a year and a half, almost 2, originally when we did your first care plan. But and glutamate into GABA. So let's just spend a minute here. So P5P is needed to convert tryptophan into serotonin. This is our I'm happy, I'm content, I'm even motivated. Glutamate into GABA. Now glutamate is called the motivator gene. This is the thing that gets us up and running. Oh my goodness. Not again. 1 minute. Nope, that's the one. I don't know why my computer keeps doing that tonight. To get us up and running and feel motivated, and then it's supposed to convert into GABA. Now, glutamate is MSG as well. That's something to think about, that when we eat Chinese food or really just like restaurant grade food, and you'd have a lot of MSG in there, monosodium glutamate. That is what it is. And natural food has it too. Vegetables have it. So there's not like totally avoiding it. We're not supposed to. But the problem that we see, especially in some nervous system types, brain types, where we have kind of some hyperactivity and difficulty down regulating into sleep and calm, is we always feel motivated. We always feel like we need to do one more email. A lot of these types of personalities will have their own businesses. They'll be an entrepreneur. They will be really driven. They will do the work and someone else's work and somebody else's. You can rely on this person. The problem is, and it is gene related, but there's ways to support this. The problem is we don't convert into GABA, which is that neurotransmitter that says I'm safe, I'm content, I have everything I need, and I totally can relax. So we end up oversaturating the brain with glutamate. I feel like this is one of the biggest reasons why we get a shift from doing cranial, is because we have lots of brains saturated with glutamate, because we are, in this state of eating so many like fast food type meals, but it's very regular for us to get food that has a lot of MSG, but the brain getting saturated and then not getting enough sleep to detox. And by enough sleep, I mean 8 hours. 7 to 8 is what's recommended to be able for the brain, like the dura mater and the cranial system, to be able to pump toxins out of the brain and down into the lymph system, down to the heart. So when we don't get that kind of sleep and we're not cycling through REM properly, the brain stores a lot of those saturated glutamate particles and we become a pretty hyper mess. So they both help. Obviously, serotonin and GABA both help manage stress and reduce overstimulation. So they also support adrenal function and help balance cortisol without crashing energy. All right, mood focus and brain support. Dopamine and serotonin both key for motivation, mental clarity. I did just want to say that it will help where there is an excess of glutamate, which is linked to nervous system overstimulation, which we just talked about. It assists in converting protein, carbohydrates into energy. So B6 is probably something I see. The problem is, too, that I will just mention, is if you are ever a person that drinks energy drinks, they put synthetic B6 in a lot of these, and it actually blocks your B6 receptor sites, which is extremely dangerous. And then you feel like you keep needing to have more and more. So really avoid those energy drinks because they are detrimental. Like, even detoxifying from your cell receptor sites so that you can receive a good form of B6 is challenging. So that's something to think about. So I did mention start with low doses because it potentially can increase neurotransmitter activity in sensitive individuals, especially prone to overstimulation. They may feel wired or restless with high doses. So I really want you to keep it to that 5-10 milligrams per day. So really low doses in the scanner combined with magnesium glycinate would be perfect. Avoid taking near bedtime. So you'd want to make sure that this particular supplement wasn't in your evening supplement library. Okay, some more areas where I'm seeing that there could be some support was definitely digestion. You had a lot of peristalsis showing up, small nutrient absorption in the actual gut, and not the colon, but the gut. So what I mean by that is the small intestines, where we do 80 to 90% of our nutrient absorption. So that, a few markers around gallbladder, liver. I definitely feel that the bile flow, this is an essential oil roll-on that I just listed. I got into formulating a few more things for digestion because of my functional genetics course. But what I'm seeing is essential oils can influence the enzymes your liver makes. So when we talk about viscosity, we're talking about how thick or fluid your bile is. So bile flow, these essential oils are meant to help with that viscosity, to thin it out and really get it moving. We don't want thick bile. That's where we develop a lot of stones and gallbladder issues. And we oxidize our fats instead of moving them into energy. So this again is directly related to that phase 2, and I'm trying to keep this simple and digestible, no pun intended, maybe there was, but we want to be able to digest the fats in our food, in our meal, even the good ones, even like in the milk that you're drinking, so that we don't get them stuck or recycling through our system in a way that we're backed up and getting oxidative stress, or what we call reactive oxygen species, which are some of the nastiest free radicals we can develop. So a smooth running bile situation comes from the liver health, and the gallbladder simply stores the bile. So that's why people can get their gallbladder out. Now, I say simply like it's absolutely essential we have a healthy gallbladder, but it is the gallbladder that releases it as well. So digestive bitters, this is really just a tincture. It's alcohol-free tincture with thyme, oregon, barberry, dandelion, elecampane. These are well known for increasing bile production and improving digestive enzyme activity. So that's going to hit the digestive system in a really gentle way. I have actually pretty much replaced my digestive enzymes through this tincture, and it really has just kind of changed my whole, where I used to feel maybe bloated or gassy after certain foods. It really came back to my gallbladder and bile flow, and so it's been fun to figure that out, and it's been helping people. So those two, I would just keep those in your car, in your truck. You do need to apply this bile flow to the liver area. That's where you apply that roll-on. And this digestive bitters would just be about 2 dropperfuls before a meal. And if you forget and you're like, oh, I forgot my tincture, just do it during the meal. But I would suggest that with heavier meals, with fatty or fried food, or even your milk. Okay. The GI detox, this is the full script account email I just sent you. I think it had 4 items. It had the, it had the zinc. Oops, go back here. It had the zinc, it had the methylcobalamin, and it had the peroxidyl 5-phosphate. But it also had the GI detox. This is my favorite form of activated charcoal right now. So it actually has like aloe and apple pectin and slippery elm and several different types of binders. And I'm recommending, because of our toxic burden right now, without going on a full-fledged cleanse, which I don't really love, I kind of appreciate these impromptu little support systems for the body where you feel that maybe that meal was not the greatest. Or maybe you just notice that you're just a little bit backed up digestively. You may want to take 2 to 3 times per week as directed. Because it is a binder, this is going to bind to mycotoxins. It will bind to yeasts. It will bind to heavy metals and really help support that microbiome. So you do want to take it at least 2 hours away from food. I like to take this at night before bed. And I do drink about 4 ounces. So ideally we're eating 4 hours before bed, ideally. And you take this a couple hours before you go to bed. Zinc, and the reason I have you in there with liquid ionic zinc is it really comes up, I wanted it separate because it comes up a little bit as a trending thing, but it's also works very well with the P5P to calm overstimulation and support neurotransmitter balance. It does a lot of things for histamine, does a lot of things for detoxification, so you may want to take a screenshot of this, or maybe just put some of these notes in the scanner so that when it comes up you can be like, yeah, that's helping immune system, nervous system regulation, detox support. Zinc is really vital, and it is a competitor with copper. So that's why I like to be really careful with getting some of these things in separate and not necessarily in capsules, because dose. I so appreciate that thing happening. Sorry about that. All right. So we're getting into food sensitivities. Trending food sensitivities. Now this is going to kind of be funny to you, but cow's milk is showing up. Mozzarella cheese is showing up. And I'm wondering, because you know that you love milk, and you know that it's the best thing in the world for you to feel great after you have your gallon a day. And you've been on that for years. But my question is, when we talk about some of these backed up systems, most people do have sensitivities to dairy, and this might be coming up in other ways where the dairy quality isn't what your raw milk is, right? It might be on a hamburger, or it might be like the mozzarella cheese on a hamburger slice, or a ice cream, or some things like that showing up on the scanner. So just something to think about. I'm not too concerned about any of these food sensitivities. I thought banana was really interesting and that it did trend. And I thought banana's usually on a list for fungal support. It's on a yeast diet, but bananas can be high in tyramine. They are high in tyramine, especially when they're overripe, which can trigger histamine release. They may also block DAO, the enzyme that breaks down histamine. So, interesting. All right, some supportive foods for your current needs. You might consider some of these things to have just a little bit more of. I wanted you to have, some explanation around why. As always, you see how you feel with different foods. Cilantro, parsley, these are natural chelators that may help move toxins. What a chelator does is it usually breaks down and binds to heavy metals. Cilantro in particular is really, really good for that, but any type of toxins. Lots of broccoli, arugula, radish, bok choy, these are very good for phase 2. Bone broth, rich in glycine and collagen. I have been more recommending short cooked bone broth the last couple years because the longer cooked top varieties can have more histamine. I'm not necessarily feeling like you need to be super careful about histamine foods, just something to kind of make a note of, that you have a few markers around histidine and homocysteine, and that to me can be really resolved by just minor changes in supplementation with some of the things we talked about. So I'm not thinking you need to go all out not having any foods that could trigger histamine. Recommended therapies and techniques, really intentional rest. We've talked about that in cogno movement, breath work and vagus nerve activation, especially breathing through the nose, humming, listening to inner voice and humming with the tones, taking time to be in nature, taking time to sit with your, the things that make you feel whole and adjusted and happy. It's really, really important that we sit with. There's a cogno movement that is in my minis available in the app around feeling more gratitude. And I feel like that's something that has been a huge shift for most of my clients when they've tried it, around any sense of urgency of I need to go and be and show up and accomplish. When we sit with gratitude and sit with what we have, there's something really beautiful that happens to our immune system, and we start forming more IgA antibodies, like a huge influx up to 60-80%. And this antibody in particular, IgA, is like our natural vaccine against all illness. So I love that when we sit with gratitude and what we have. A few things I talked about would be cranial sacral therapy to help with that brain, that lymphatic system, help teach the brain and nervous system how to regulate. Saunas are really well studied, encouraging sweat-based detoxification. There's really incredible studies linking sauna use to longevity, and by several years, not just a little bit, and also decreasing risk of chronic disease. So if you can get to a sauna or sweat it out somewhere you're getting that moist heat, it's a fantastic way to, and I know you're a natural sweater, so. All right. Yep, sound therapy, cogno movement, we know these things. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer via email, text message. You know how to get a hold of me, and I sent over that full script recommend already. So again, apologies for not getting this to you sooner. I have no excuses, except I've been busy. So any questions, let me know. I hope you have a great rest of wherever it is that you're having when this video hits.